All right, Hokie Nation. It's been a little bit of a hiatus for us. We've missed three men's games. We're going to recap all that tonight, but we're going to start this podcast with the women's program because they just beat. It is Sunday the 18th. They just wrapped up a double-digit road win against Louisville, a double-digit ranked win against a really good opponent. Liz Kitley had never won at Louisville, so this was a big one for her. Liz and Georgia were both phenomenal. They both had double doubles. But at this point, that's kind of just becoming the norm, which is an insane thing to say out loud. But we wanted to start out with the women because we're riding high off that big win. Mike, they've now won 9 straight games. They've got 3 more regular season games, including a sold out game next Sunday against North Carolina for senior night. You can't say enough good things about Liz and Georgia and Kayla, and obviously, Matilda Eck and Olivia Sumil, everybody around them. But man, Coach Brooks, that guy absolutely knows ball. I don't know how he would not be ACC Coach of the Year, because where we stand, like I said, 9 game win streak, multiple road ranked wins. It's just been absolutely incredible what this little run they've been able to go on here, and I don't really see it slowing down.
You mentioned in the group chat today, we have a Suns group chat. You mentioned that, you think that Tech will crack the top 10 this week in the AP poll after this win against Louisville, the way they did in dominant fashion. Like, 1,000% agree. But it was interesting, right? Because, like, after Tech beat Duke last week, I'm sitting here, I'm looking kind of at, the way that Virginia Tech's played. They beat NC State, and then Tech just kind of moves up to, I think, what was it, 12th?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, is it possible that this team is flying under the radar despite going to the Final Four last year? It feels that way a little bit, right? It feels like they're being held down a bit by that Florida State loss earlier in the year. But this team's been really, really good for like a month straight. I mean, it's really been since Georgia Amore got hurt against Duke. They've been really good ever since. You mentioned the string of double doubles. Liz Kitley's worst game was 15 points, 15 rebounds on 7 of 21 shooting against UNC a few weeks ago. Like, that was her worst game. Like, your worst game's a 15 and 15 double double.
Yep.
It's preposterous what she's doing. I mean, every night it's like 30 and 15. And when you think you've seen it all with her, right? Because we're in our 5th season with Liz Kitley. When you think you've seen it all with her, she just like starts putting together something that's like even more monumental than what she did the year before. She was one of the best players in the country last year, and she's somehow gotten better. I mean, the string of like 25 to 30 point and 15 rebound games that she's put together in the month of February is absurd. And this team, I mean, we knew this going into it. Like, this team is going to go as far as Georgia Amore and Liz Kitley take it, right? And we know what that ceiling is. It's Final Four, national championship good if the team in front of them decides that they are not going to guard the high pick and roll that they just run repeatedly over and over and over again. Like, essentially, like this team is going to go as far as Amore and Kitley take it, and the role players have been important. The emergence of Matilda Eck, she's starting to really shoot the ball better. Olivia Sumio has been really good. Kayla King, a complete performance today, right? She only had 9 points. Was it 9 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists? Just very. Everybody is kind of doing their part, and I think what's been most impressive about this 9-game win streak is that Virginia Tech's defense has come along as well. Like, this team is really, really defending at a high level right now. And you saw it today. I mean, this game against Louisville was kind of like a culmination. The game against Duke earlier in the week was a culmination as well, where like the Duke game especially, like Tech didn't have their best stuff offensively, but it felt like they were in control throughout that game, right? In a game you only win by 5, it felt like they were in control. This game against Louisville, to go on the road and win by double digits against a top 20 team, and just kind of roll with your stars, into a road environment and win the way that they did. This team is really starting to fire on all cylinders, and it's a good time of year to do that. And this is kind of the trajectory that Tech was on last year, where They just kind of got stronger after Christmas, right? Got into January and February, and it was a Kenny Brooks masterclass. And that's what we're seeing again this year with a roster that, I mean, of course you have Kitley and Amor, but might not be quite as good as it was a year ago. It's definitely different. And Matilda X coming along and Sumiel's coming along, and it's just going really well right now. And I think you got to give Kenny Brooks a lot of credit for the way that he's been able to get the most out of this roster that I think looks a lot different than it did last year.
Yeah, it does. I actually was just writing that down, and I was thinking about this earlier today. Like this team feels very similar to where it was this time last year, and yeah, you lose Taylor Soule and Keanu Traylor and Deasia Gregg, and to a slightly lesser extent in terms of playing time, Taylor Guyman. But I think the combination of Wenzel and Strack and Sumiel and Eck, and then you add a little bit of Karis Baker in there as well, is as good, if not better. Provides you a little bit of different things. The height aspect of Strack is a huge difference maker and has unlocked a lot of things for this team.
The rebounding's been
Samuel's ability to rebound the ball at such a high level and knock down corner threes. Um, and then, Carly Wenzel's a dog. I mean, she comes in there and just makes really, really good plays, does a good job of limiting her turnovers when she's handling the ball in high pressure situations. They kind of use her similarly to how Mike Young will use MJ Collins. Coach Brooks uses Carly Wenzel to get the point guard off the ball a little bit, get Georgia off the ball, get Sean Padula off the ball. It kind of reminds me of that. But today, Carly Wenzel, 21 minutes, 2 of 5 from the floor, 3 rebounds, an assist, a steal, and 8 points. That's really good production from kind of your backup point guard ish. But it's such an interesting rotation right now because you've got Samuel, Kitley, King, who are all in their 5th year. You got Amor, who's a senior, and then Matilda Ack, who I guess is a junior. And then you've basically got 3 freshmen: Karis Baker, Clara Strack, and Carly Wenzel are basically all just freshmen. So,
right.
And they're all really impactful. Like Karis Baker's ability to shoot the 3. She's shooting the 3 at, I had this up, 46% on the year.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
ridiculous. At one point when I looked at that a few weeks ago, if it held for the rest of the year, it would have been the best 3-point percentage season in school history. And it's not in limited amount of time. She's playing and she's shooting. So she's just been fantastic. But you mentioned Liz, and I don't want to downplay it. Like Coach Brooks talks about it all the time. Just like don't forget what's going on right in front of you and how good this is. Doug Bowman from 247 tweeted this out. Her month of February, 33 and 18 against Virginia, 15 and 15 against UNC, 25 and 13 against NC State, who at the time was the number 3 team in the country, 24 and 15 against Boston College, 34 and 12 against Duke, and 23 and 12. Actually, no, he tweeted this out during the game. So 23 and 12 at one point. She finished with 26 and 13 today. So those numbers in February are absolutely out of control. It won't happen. It should happen. But they should retire her number at senior night. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Like, it's absolutely just ridiculous. And her number should be retired as soon as humanly possible. They'll probably wait till next year. But it's just absolutely incredible what she's been able to do. She's put herself in a conversation for best athlete in school history. I mean, she's right up there with any name you could pull out of the hat. She's got a case to be better than in terms of her career at Virginia Tech and school history. It's just absolutely incredible what she does night in and night out. And people kind of just forget about it. It's crazy.
I tweeted this after a Duke game. I guess it was Friday morning. Like, Kitley's a top 5 athlete in the history of the school, and she's a lot closer to 1 than she is to 5, right?
100%, 100%.
I mean, there have been a lot of really good athletes that came through Virginia Tech, and Vic. I don't want to dive into this whole argument right now.
Yeah.
What Michael Vick did to just like put the school on the map with like admissions and just kind of like casting a wide net. It was football. He just kind of changed the trajectory of the program for Beamer. What he did kind of, in my opinion, kind of stands alone. But Kitley's a lot closer to Vic than she is like, I don't know. Cornell Brown. I name that athlete. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's just really impressive what she's done. I mean, the argument to be made to retire her number immediately is like not one that should be disputed by anybody, right?
No.
Like she's going to go down as a multiple time All-American. She took Virginia Tech to one Final Four. There's potential that she could do it again. With the way Virginia Tech's playing, they're playing like a top 5 team in the country right now. Is it possible that they're flying under the radar? I think the answer is yes, right? I think people looked at what Virginia Tech lost last year and thought, okay, is there any possible way they're going to do that again? And, you lose a couple big time games early in the year, right? You lose that game against LSU, lose to Iowa. It's like, okay, like, is this team not going to be a top, 4 team in the country? Top 5 team in the country this year? They just failed their 2 early season tests in non-con on neutral sites. So it's like, okay, is this not going to be the type of team that it was last year? And then you look up and you remember this team's got an entire season to improve, and you just see what they've done in a loaded ACC. They beat NC State not once but twice. They've beaten Carolina once. They're hosting game day, by the way, next Sunday.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up.
They're hosting game day for a senior day against North Carolina. Have a chance to beat them again. They split 2 games with Duke. Played one of their worst games of the season against Duke, and then you kind of take a step back and understand why that game got away from them. It's because Georgia Amore got hurt, right? This is a really, really good basketball team. Louisville's no slouch, right? Virginia Tech goes in there today and beats it by 16. Louisville's a good team.
Yeah, Louisville was favored by 1.5, I think. Yeah, they were, top 18 coming in the day. Back to the Liz thing, though. She's averaging 22 and 11 on 55% from the floor.
It's absurd.
So every time she does one of those one-legged fadeaways, it's got a greater than 1 in 2 chance of going in. It's just ridiculous. And then Georgia, right alongside her, is averaging almost 18 and 7 on 40% from the floor. Just 2 of the best players in the country on one of the best teams in the country, and it's exciting stuff, man. Coach Brooks really just can't say enough about how awesome he is, and he should collect every accolade there is. And he's got this program humming at a crazy high level, man. It doesn't slow down when Liz leaves. I'm telling you right now. This class moves out, and then you've got Claire Strack and Karis Baker and Carly Wenzel in a top 10 recruiting class. And it doesn't slow down. Coach Brooks has this thing humming. But to your game day point, so this is from David Cunningham over at TSL. Game day coming to Blacksburg. Blacksburg is the show's 7th ever site. So this doesn't happen on the women's side very often. This is not a weekly occurrence for ESPN to do a game day on the women's side of things. Tech joins LSU and Tennessee as the only schools to host college game day for football, men's basketball, and women's basketball. Virginia Tech, LSU, and Tennessee. And the last note here is that the Hokies are the first ACC school to host the show on the women's side. So, pretty rare air that ESPN is doing this and coming to Virginia Tech for that senior day game against Carolina. And again, just a testament to what Coach Brooks has built and what these girls have built, because it's an incredible program, and it's getting the national attention that it deserves. So incredibly exciting. They now have basically what is considered a bye week. They don't play again until that game. So they don't play again until Carolina. I'll be there. I'm fired up. I was really lucky to get tickets early in the year, because now they're like $200+.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be awesome. But 2:00 against Carolina next Sunday is the next time the girls will lace them up. And then they finish, I guess that's a Thursday game. Yeah, right after Carolina, they go on the road to Notre Dame, who is currently number 16. They're going to slide a little bit in the polls because they got smacked around at home by NC State, who Virginia Tech has beat twice. So we go to Notre Dame and then finish at UVA before the ACC tournament, which right now Virginia Tech is in first place in the conference and would be the 1 seed if things ended today. The Notre Dame game will be interesting just because it's kind of the 2 presumed ACC Player of the Year candidates in Liz Kitley and Hannah Hidalgo. So we'll see how things go in that one. I'm excited to watch Hannah Hidalgo play. She's pretty incredible.
She's sick. Yeah.
She's averaging, first, mind you, she's a freshman, averaging
right, yeah.
24, 6, and 5 on 47% shooting. And I think she's averaging, 5.4 steals per game.
Yeah.
That's just out of control.
She
Uh,
had that highlight. She had that highlight play in Notre Dame's opener, like
yeah.
3 months ago, where she like drove down the floor, went behind the back, and had like a ridiculous layup. I was like, this is not normal for a freshman.
No, 24, 6, 5, and 5 steals.
Yeah,
It's out
yeah.
of control.
Speaking of getting that program back humming, like Neil Ivy's got that thing rolling in
Well,
South
and
Bend.
Olivia Miles, I don't think has played all year. I mean, she was one of the best point guards in the country last year before going
Yeah,
down with injury. So,
yep.
yeah, that's a really really good program as well. But yeah, that's kind of our women's side of things. Just absolutely amazing what they've been able to accomplish, and
One
I'm
season
looking forward
play.
to watching this thing close out. And last regular season home game. If things ended today, they'd be hosting NCAA tournament games, which I went to last year and was a really, really cool experience. It was a bit weird that it was like not a Virginia Tech home. I mean, we were the home team, but couldn't treat it as a home game, couldn't do all the normal Castle stuff, which was kind of a weird experience. But Virginia Tech fans were able to fill in and take care of that kind of thing on our own. So it was a really fun environment, and I assume it will be so again this year if things shake out the way that they're looking. So the men's team. um,
Yeah, yeah.
so last time we
Not
recorded,
good.
we basically said that the men's team had a path to success. That path was to basically not lose any games that you shouldn't, right? Any of those Q3, Q4 games that Virginia Tech had done a really good job of not messing up. We didn't really have a terrible loss, and that was allowing us to have a path to success. Well, we went right up to Notre Dame and just spit that away. Lost to a not so great Notre Dame team on the road,
Defense was so bad.
74-66. It was just a crushing loss. I mean, like,
Yeah.
no words other than that. It was as upset as I've been after a game. I mean, I was just down. I was so bummed. Um, Jean Padula had 14, but they all kind of came late. Yeah, he didn't really turn it on until the game was kind of put away. Could not guard Marcus Burton. He was just simply way too quick. He was kind of getting where he needed to whenever he wanted. Um, and I saw a stat heading into that game that ACC schools, I think at the time, were 1-10 coming off of their bye, coming off their off date. And we went right ahead and made that 1-11. So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
off date hasn't been kind of teams this year. It wasn't kind of Virginia Tech, and like I said, that was as disappointing a loss as I've seen in quite some time. I was I was down pretty bad the rest of the day after that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Your text to me was, well, that sucked. And I really just had nothing else to say other than, yeah, it did. Like, I, you know, we were talking a little bit before we hit record, and I know that the folks who listen to us pretty consistently are going to kind of understand where Ed and I both stand here, but like, we're not really breaking any new ground. Um, but just like in no uncertain terms, this is kind of how this season is shaken out. We came into the year knowing that Sean Padula wasn't going to be able to handle the offensive load once again like he did last year. Sean Padula's gotten better, right?
Oh,
He's
yeah.
gotten better, um, gotten stronger. His offensive game has been better, and he's. We knew coming into the year his usage couldn't possibly be um, what it was last year, and yet here we are. That's exactly what happened. Um, Same usage, and the front court presence offensively is lacking. Right, that's what's going on here. You think of kind of what Virginia Tech's had offensively since Mike Young got here. You had multiple years of Keve Aluma. You had Justin Mutz. You had Grant Basile a year ago offensively. That really helped. You don't have that this year, right? I think Virginia Tech's relying on too much of Tyler Nickel, right? You're asking Tyler Nickel to, score the basketball at a clip that I think is unfair considering the fact that he really didn't play much last year.
No.
He played for three, 3 games maybe. His best game was against the Hokies, ironically. He didn't play much college basketball last year. Um, and now we're in a position where we're relying on him to kind of pick up the third scoring role, which I think is unfair. Um, it's tough. I mean, it's Padula and Couture, and then you're kind of searching for that third offensive guy every night. And in a lot of cases, it has to be Tyler Nickel. And it's a tough spot to be in when you're kind of expected to produce at a top level against some of the better teams in the conference. And Tech's roster isn't built in a way that, it can't. It's like a lot of 50-50 games that this team's playing right now because they're playing kind of one hand tied behind their back offensively.
Mhm.
Your best player is Padula offensively, and he's the only guy who can really reliably create his own shot. And then the other guy who is Mr. Reliable, spot up shooter, great defender, is Hunter Couture. But he's not a guy who's going to create off the bounce very often, right? Not in a way that Padula can, certainly. So you're just kind of handcuffed, especially when we don't have the front court offensive presence. So I think that's when you have to play offense that way and there's really only one way to beat teams, it makes things really tough. And I think that's what Tech's run into this year.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it a few times. Like when Virginia Tech has a third scorer, we win games. Um, I guess I should caveat that with a third scorer on the perimeter because the center spot has been reliably consistent. Some nights it's Kidd, some nights it's Poteet, some nights it's a combination of the two. But the five spot has been pretty consistent in terms of the production you're going to get out of it. But the wing scoring hasn't been. And on nights when Collins or Nickel produce offensively, Virginia Tech wins games or is right there in games. People will look at the Carolina loss, which we'll get to in a second, as a bad loss. You lost by 15. Well, we were supposed to lose by 10. They're the number 7 team in the country. Their roster probably costs 4 times what ours does. And, we lost by 5 more than we were supposed to. We were within 9 with like 3 minutes to go. Like, I thought Virginia Tech played a pretty good game there. Again, we'll get to it in a second.
It was
But
79-72 with 6 minutes left.
yeah, but like Collins and Nickel both played really well. And as a result, we were right in that game. So when one of the two of them plays well or produces well from that 3 spot, 3-4, I guess Nickel plays a little 4. Virginia Tech does really well. So that's something I'm going to keep an eye on down the stretch is just the growth of those two, because I think those two are going to be really impactful next year and hopefully beyond, going into their true junior season. I mean, people forget these guys are both sophomores. MJ Collins was a 3-star coming out of high school. Tyler Nickel, a 4-star, but Tyler Nickel didn't play much at all his freshman year, whereas MJ played a lot out of necessity. But I'm going to keep an eye on those two and see how they progress, because I think they've progressed pretty well. They've both gotten better as the season's gone on. They've both gotten more confident in putting the ball on the floor and going to get a shot as the season's gone on. I just want to see more of that growth continue because, you lose Hunter Couture next year. Unfortunately, he can't come back. I wish he could, but he can't. So it's, Sean Padula and then who? So you got to find that. And the answer, I think, could lie within internally right now in those two guys who are playing big minutes for you right now. So I'm just going to keep an eye on that as the season goes on. I want to see Tyler Nickel shooting 10 times a game, minimum. Absolutely minimum 10 times a game. Because if you look back at his last 4 games, he shot the ball 8 times, 5 times, 9 times, and 8 times. That resulted in 10, 9, 15, and 14. So he's not even shooting a whole lot of volume, and he's scoring almost in double digits in all 4 games. I just want to see his volume get a little bit higher because the kid can score at all 3 levels. I mean, that dunk against Florida State was awesome. The mid-range pull-up has been something we've seen flashes of all year, and then obviously the 3-point shooting is electric. He's as good a 3-point shooter probably as Hunter Couture is even. So I want to see him shoot the ball more. And then with MJ, a little bit more of that too. Like, I don't need to see him shoot as many threes, but go to the rack, get fouled, go try to dunk on somebody. What do you have to lose at this point? I mean, you're a
Stop
freak athlete.
settling.
Dunk on somebody's head. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, the aggression out of the two of them is something that I want to continue to see more of because I think they're 2 players that are going to be really good contributors for Virginia Tech down the stretch here this year, and then definitely going into next year as their
agreed.
true junior year. I wrote this down. I was going to get to it later, but we're talking about it now. So, when I think about like recruiting and Mike, I'm curious your take. I haven't actually talked to you about this one. I've talked to other
Okay.
people about it, but when I look at recruiting and I see guys like Brandon Recksteiner or Jaden Young or MJ Collins or those are 3 good examples. We'll just go with that. Those are high 3-star recruits. Right on the edge, almost 4-star guys, like really good basketball players who didn't get the 4th star for whatever reason. I don't really anticipate those guys playing at a high level their freshman year. I don't really expect them to be playing at a super high level their sophomore year. These are those high three, mid 3-star guys are program builder types. Those are guys you have in your locker room for 3 to 4 years, who are going to peak at the same time they probably did in their high school career, late, a
Right.
little bit later.
Hmm.
They're going to progress later, but by the time they do hit their stride, they're going to be really, really productive players for you. These are all guys who, you know, Coach Young got on early and then got them as a result because of his eye for scouting. Um, he saw whatever he saw in MJ Collins before MJ Collins became the 89 rated guy, or 80 89. What's the number, 89 average
Yeah.
on 24/7, and 89 is a high 3-star. Coach Young was on him before he got rated that high. I can tell you that right now. So, when you scout these guys, you're scouting them for who they're going to be, as juniors, not who they're going to be as freshmen. Now, in MJ's case, he had to play early and often. I personally think I've seen strides in MJ's game from freshman year to sophomore year, and I expect a bigger jump from sophomore year to junior year. I mean, think about the jump Georgia Amore made from her sophomore year to her junior year last year.
Yeah.
That's when you hit your stride, is when you become an adult, right? Like, yeah, these guys are coming in as 18, 19-year-old kids, and they're playing against Armando Bacot, who's been in college for 17 years.
Right. Right.
So, these guys are going to hit their stride, and I think it's a fool's errand to write some of these kids off a little bit too early, because I think they're going to be really good basketball players.
I agree. The one thing I just want to add is it's silly to write off the young guys who haven't played a ton. I think that there's credence, right, to the complaint of the playing time that they're getting or not getting, especially now down the stretch where Virginia Tech's in the spot where they really got to develop for next year.
Yeah.
I think those guys got to play more just to see what you got, right? And I don't mean like see what you got, like you got to replace them on the roster or anything like that. I just mean like see what you got in terms of like you got to just get them on the floor and get them comfortable. And so when they enter the fray next year and the lights come on, they're not just sitting there starstruck,
Yep.
You got to get them out there playing a little bit here. I think Tech, like because of kind of where they're at from a program standpoint in terms of recruiting and stuff like that, Mike Young's problem has never been recruiting the guys. It's been keeping the high level guys in Blacksburg. Like we know that. That's the issue. It's not the development of players. Like he developed Couture, he developed Aluma. We saw what Basili turned into last year. Obviously what he's done with Padula. He's a developmental coach, and he's done a really good job doing that in Blacksburg. I think the next iteration of the program, and for Tech to take the next step, it's keeping the high-level recruits in the boat, which is easier said than done from an NIL standpoint, but then also bringing on the young guys and continuing to be the developmental coach that he is. And that's what Virginia Tech is. It's a program. That's kind of what they need to be moving forward, is just, being able to have more than one way to beat an opposing team offensively, not running everything through one guy. I mean, Sean Padula is a very good high-level point guard. You're asking him to play at an All-American level because of how the offense is structured. Like, that's the bottom line. And for as good as Padula is, like, he's not an All-American, right? He's not, like, a top 10 player in the country. But you're asking him to be because of the way the offense is. I mean, you got to structure it differently. So a lot of that comes with player development, like you mentioned. A lot of the young guys who haven't played a ton yet, I'd like to see those guys get some more playing time down the stretch.
Yeah, and I think I don't want to read into it and put words in anybody's mouth, but I think we're seeing that already. Since the Notre Dame loss, which in a lot of ways kind of made life really difficult for them to potentially make the tournament. You've seen an uptick in Tyler Nichols minutes. You've seen a significant uptick in Jaden Young minutes. He went from playing, 7, 2, 2, 2 to 12 and 12 the last two games since the Notre Dame game. So Jaden Young, you're seeing an uptick in minutes from him. A guy who I'm really high on, by the way. I think he's going to be a really good player.
Yep.
I think he does a lot of the things that Mike Young looks for, and I think he does them at a really high level, and is a sneaky good athlete as well. So I'm excited to see Jaden Young continue to play. But yeah, I think it's been a tough. That Notre Dame loss was tough. We haven't even talked about FSU. I guess we'll kick it over to FSU, and we'll see what other topics we uncover along the way. But
yep.
Florida State, Florida State was as good of a game as this team's played all year. Florida State came in. They're aggressive. They're athletic. They're. I said to somebody in a group chat, I said, Mike Young just beat a team full of the type of roster that everybody says we can't play against. Super athletic, four-star recruits, and we beat them pretty handily. It got close there for a minute, but we won that game. We were pretty much winning that game throughout. So there's more than one ways to win a basketball game, is my point there. But 83-75 win over Florida State. Played them really well down in Tallahassee, too. Had a chance to win that game. Would have been a big one early in the year. So we split with Leonard Hamilton's crew. Virginia Tech out-rebounded the super athletic, full of four-star roster,
Who
35
would
to
have thought?
23. I think that was the difference maker in the game. Virginia Tech struggled rebounding the ball at times this year, and they were able to out-rebound a really, really good rebounding team.
Yeah,
Padula had 19, Couture had 20, and then, we won the game. Tyler Nickel had 15. So you got 15 from your third wing scorer there. Only 11 turnovers against that full court press, high intensity FSU team. They had 16 turnovers. So as complete a game as this team's played all year, and it came at a time they really needed it. So I was excited for the guys on that one. That was a huge win to kind of right the ship after a crushing loss.
yeah. Played much better offensively. Defensively, pretty solid, like you mentioned, forcing 16 turnovers, low turnover game on the offensive end. And again, you mentioned the wing scoring thing. Like, I think that's something you and I should start monitoring a little bit more down the stretch of the season. Is like what this team looks like, wins and losses, what the distribution looks like, when that wing scorer, whether it be MJ Collins or Tyler Nickel, like when they produce at the level that we think they can. Right? Nice bourbon glass, by the way. I have that one.
Thank you.
Hold a canter set. Yeah, I mean, when they produce at that kind of level, what kind of volume does Tyler Nickel get down the stretch? Those are things I want to watch out for. Because, like you mentioned against Florida State, like when Nickel is getting his shots up, that's when this team is set up for offensive success. When the other guys play like they're supposed to, and it's going to be really important to the development of the offense next year for Nickel to be kind of a more reliable guy. Because I think what you're hoping is that he steps in and becomes like a better all-around scorer than Hunter Couture, right? He kind of slides into the Couture role, and I'm not sure. Couture's an outstanding player, right?
Oh yeah, they're different
but
players though. Yeah, I got what
but
you mean.
you're different player, right? It's a different style, and you're hoping that he comes in. He's kind of like a better all-around player offensively next year when you really need him to be when Couture's no longer on the roster. Is kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah, no, I agree. So that was a good win. And then we played Carolina. I transparently didn't get to watch a whole lot of this game. I was helping my brother move. So from what I did see though, in the bits I was able to watch in the car or check up on throughout, it seemed like Tech played a pretty good game against a really good team. And that happens on the road against Carolina, one of the best teams in the country who has national title aspirations this year. But it seemed like overall Virginia Tech played pretty well. 6 guys in double figures. Um, Lost on the glass against Armando Bacot. You kind of anticipate that. Baran had 4 fouls. Kidd had 4 fouls. Poteet had 3. Again, kind of anticipate that against Bacot. Wessler got a good chance to play his first real minutes in an ACC game. From what I gather, that didn't go well. But again, on the road against Carolina and Armando Bacot, and you're getting your first minutes. So it's a tough
Yeah,
place to get thrown into the fire. Interested to see how his minutes are distributed throughout the rest of the season, and if he gets to play much more. I hope he does because 7-footer who can shoot the three is something that's very intriguing. Um,
yeah,
Overall, 29% from three. That you're not going to be able to beat a team of Carolina's caliber on the road shooting poorly. So bummer. That was a good chance to maybe sneak back in the conversation. But Carolina's really good. So the Mekhi Long thing is another thing I wanted to touch on. He hasn't played in a month. I guess it's still the knee injury. I know he dressed in one game. I can't remember which one in that time span, but never
yeah.
played.
When did Tech have the week off? It was right after they had a week off. He dressed.
So he
Notre
dressed at
Dame.
Notre Dame. He
He
dressed
dressed
at
at
Notre
Notre
Dame.
Dame. Dressed
Yeah.
at Notre Dame, didn't
So he dressed at Notre Dame and didn't play, and he hasn't played now in a month, or it'll be a day shy of a month when we play Virginia tomorrow.
he? Yeah.
Um, Not really sure what's going on there. It's been, he was never a big scorer for us, but it was a really athletic body who played good defense and rebounded. We could have used him in a lot of these games. So curious to see if he's done for the year or what the knee injury situation is. Would love for him to play against Virginia because I think he's definitely impactful against their kind of basketball. So
Agreed.
keeping an eye on that. We got Virginia tomorrow. I guess most people will probably listen to this day of the game. I'm going to be there. I'm really excited. Mike Young and Tony Bennett love to split 1-1 against each other, so really hoping for that. Get a big win from Mike Young and the boys, but I don't know. I think we're like 3-point favorites right now. Actually, we lost by 8 in Charlottesville in a game I thought we played pretty well. And I think we're a better team now than we were then, but so are they. They've improved obviously tremendously. It's going to be
Yeah, real good
a
tournament
chance to
team.
beat a ranked team in Castle. They were 21 today. Who knows what they'll be tomorrow when the new poll comes out? But a good shot to knock off an in-state rival and a ranked one at that. Virginia Tech is 60th in the net right now. Virginia's 40th. Um, they have a borderline first round draft pick type guy that they haven't had in quite some time in Ryan Dunn. I don't know that Bennett's had a guy of that NBA level since they won the title with DeAndre
Jerome
Hunter.
and all
So
them. Yeah.
yeah, so they got Ryan Dunn. He's obviously a really good player. Reese Beekman is probably their best player, but Dunn is the best pro prospect. So it's gonna be an interesting game. I'm sure it's gonna be a fun environment, and I'm excited to be there. You got any thoughts on Virginia?
You have a chance to beat a ranked opponent in Castle, so
Yeah.
I don't care what stage of the season you're at. You gotta be excited for it. You gotta get up for that game. So
Yeah, I think they will. Yeah, like I said, I thought we played really well against Florida State in a win. I thought we played pretty well from what I saw against Carolina in a loss. So hopefully we can continue that. Obviously, quick turnaround Saturday to Monday. We've had that twice now, both times against good teams in Duke and Virginia. That's kind of a bummer how that's
it's a
worked out.
killer.
But actually, yeah, it's right in front of my face. Virginia Tech -2.5 is the number right now. So, cautious optimism, but
Mm-hmm.
we got to let you go because I know your kid just woke up. It's 9 o'clock at night, and you got to go put him back to bed. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
all in all, the women are crushing it. Keep watching them. That's going to be an amazing environment next Sunday with game day in town. Big one for the men against Virginia, and then they've got Virginia followed by at Pitt, right? Or am I
Mm-hmm.
missing it? Yeah, at Pitt.
Two big
Uh,
ones in a row here.
two away games at Pitt, at Syracuse, Wake at home, at Louisville, and Notre Dame to wrap it up, and then ACC tournament time. So we'll probably record again after Pitt, but until then, go Hokies.